Hello and welcome to a special edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where I'm going to take a look at one of these new puzzles by Fistamafel, no less. This is called 7, and I've not done this obviously, but Mark has already looked at this, and I got a slightly odd message back from him where basically he says he's not sure that this is the sort of puzzle we should be doing on the channel as sort of a regular video, because he's worried that it might not appeal to many of the audience, or at least most of our audience. I can't judge it until I've done it, so I'm hoping that this video will do two things, I suppose. Firstly, I'll be able to crack the puzzle. Secondly, I'll be able to have more of an idea about where this puzzle should be seen. So hopefully if I can solve it, it will appear somewhere. It might be patrons, in which case thank you so much for being a patron. It might be on the channel itself, in which case thanks so much, obviously, for watching us on Cracking the Cryptic. Let's read the rules and see what's going on. Here we go. Place the digits 1 to 6 exactly once into every row, column and region. The regions need to be determined, and each is a set of 6 connected cells. 2 orthogonally adjacent cells belong to different regions if and only if their digits add up to 7. Digits increase along a thermometer starting from the bulb end. Right. Okay. So, what do we do to start this puzzle? I mean, well, the short answer is I don't know. I will confess to that. I mean, it's pretty bizarre, actually, just at first blush, that this has a unique solution. And the reason I say that is a feeling about these thermometers. I mean, Mark, presumably, he would have started by pencil marking these thermometers. That is something that strikes me as madness. These thermometers cannot be the key to this puzzle, surely. It must be to do with this 7s across a boundary thing, and understanding what that means. And I've no doubt there'll be some geniuses watching this who can just say, well, it means this. However, I do not really understand. I mean, obviously, we're dealing with the digits 1 to 6, so the possibilities, if we're going to have a boundary, it's either got to be 1, 6, 2, 5, or 3, 4. So that's the only way we can form boundaries in this puzzle, is one of these combinations. But how on earth do we work out where those how on earth do you work out where those combinations are meant to be? I'm tempted, and forgive me for doing this, but I'm tempted just to try and fill in a row and see what it means. So is it possible in this puzzle that you can just, you could have a 6-cell region in a row? If we did that, all we'd have to do is keep the 3 and the 4 apart. So we couldn't have this, but providing we didn't have, let's put the 3 there, therefore. And now this can't be a 4, let's make that 2. Now this can't be a 5, we'll make it 6. And now we can put the 4 there safely and the 5 there safely. Now let me just check this. I don't think any of those combinations add up to 6. So if this was true, if this was a real region, then it's already of size 6. So that means this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, and this cell have all got to be in different regions, and therefore these are boundaries. So that would be a 6, that would be a 4, that would be a 5, that would be a 1. My thermo's working. That's a 3, and that's a 2. And all of those would also be in their own room. That's interesting. Right, so what I've noticed now actually is this is already broken. This cannot work. And the reason it can't work is actually these two regions work rather beautifully together. And they do work. But now I've got a problem with this cell, or 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 this cell, all of which are impossible individually. Because, of course, this must be in a different region to green, because green has got 6 cells in it. So if I add any cells to green, it will be a repeated digit axiomatically. But that means this is in a different region, so that's a boundary. This little line here is a boundary. Let's actually see if I've got my pen tool on. Right, let's put, that would have to be a boundary, because at the moment we've got those boundaries. But that means this square here is a 1, and then you get a repeated 1 in the column. And that would be broken, that would be broken, that would be broken, that would be broken, and that would be broken. Everything would be broken, and everything would be roggen. Now, hang on, I don't actually know what this means at all, beyond that we have now proved that you cannot have a stripe as a region. That's just deleting all our progress. So you can't have a stripe as a region. So, what does that mean? You can't have a stripe as a region. So what can you have as a region? So that means as we go across the grid, let's say we had a little bit of a region here. It's not possible it reaches the other end of the grid. So it must end somewhere along here. So, I mean, we could have this, for example. So there must always be a region or a boundary, at least one boundary, somewhere before a region that starts on the left gets all the way across to the right. Right, okay. How about another sensible thought then? Or it's a simple thought, but it's not possible. That's broken already, isn't it? Because of course this square, whatever this digit is equal to, let's make it, I don't know, 4. If this is a 4, both of those squares now have to be 3, because they are in the, well, because they're in a different region to the 4, so they must add up to 7 across the boundary, but they are in the same region, which is impossible. So what does that mean? So that means any cell that has a boundary with another region can't have a second boundary with that same region. Can't have. I'm just trying to think about what that means. It can't have a second boundary with that same region. So what kind of boundary can it have then? So this hypothetical 4 here. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's interesting as well. It can't be like a cul-de-sac. Let me show you what I mean. It can't be. Oh, I didn't mean to make that green. Let's make that green, and that red. Or let's make that yellow. So now this orange region comes into a cul-de-sac. So this is like if you were drawing a loop, it would be like a slitherlink 3. This clue. And a slitherlink 3 in this puzzle is impossible, because now this cell has a boundary here, well that's going to be a 3, a boundary here, that's going to be a 3, and a boundary here, that's going to be a 3. So you're going to have 2 3s in a column in this instance, but if we did the boundary in a different way, let's say the boundary came down to here, and that was a purple, and that was a black, and that was let's make that a green, and we put the 4 here, now we're going to get 2 3s in the row. So that feels important, that feels sensible, doesn't it? So now we know, what do we know? We know that a cell that has a boundary, because I guess there could be cells that don't have boundaries actually. Sorry, I'm starting to confuse myself here. So we could have a cell in the corner that's surrounded by its own region, and this cell has no boundaries. But if a cell has a boundary, first thing we've learned is that it can't have a boundary like that, where it has two boundaries with the same region. We've also learned that it can never be a cul-de-sac because, well, let's do that because these cells would have to contain the same digit. So what other types of boundary can it have? That's an interesting question. What about if we make that orange? That also, I think, is broke. Actually, this is going to be a bit confusing because I'm getting confused looking at the thermo. Let's do a different example where there's no thermo involved. So if we had that, and then it ends here, and then that's in a different region, and that's in the same region. Now, there, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. I don't think you can have... I don't think this cell can be purple or blue, because if it is, you've got double 3 here. Now if this is purple or blue, yeah, that's really weird. That's really weird. Yeah, okay, well let's pick purple or blue. It's the same logic for each. If that's purple, the problem is that's a boundary. So that has to be a 4. And if that's a 4, those add up to 7, so they can't be in the same region. Isn't that strange? So, yeah, and of course it works the same way if that's blue. If that's blue, then this is a boundary, so that has to be a 4, making these add up to 7, and that has to be a boundary. So hang on, I'm going crazy here. So anywhere that a shape, any region that reaches into the middle of the grid, and we know that, here you go. We know that a stripe is impossible. We said that at the start. So any region that starts here must it must come into row 2 somewhere. It must do. Once it comes into row 2 somewhere, it's, at some point this orange shape is going to hit a cell where the next cell over is not it's not itself. Okay, so let's imagine. The thing is, I don't want to pollute this with the thermos. That's where it gets complicated. Let's use this cell as the example. So it's been merrily trotting along, and it comes to this square, and we're going to say this square is definitely not orange. Okay, because it's not possible for the whole grid to be orange. So we're just going to say it's this square that's not orange. Now we have to decide what is the nature of this cell's boundaries. What options does it have? Because what we've worked out so far is it can't be a cul-de-sac, so it's not possible that those two cells are different. That would be absolutely impossible. Now we've just worked out here with this logic that you can't have a sort of, I don't know how to describe this, it can't have only 2 borders, or it can't, yeah, I'm not articulating this very well. But my feeling is this has to be a whole group of rectangles. For reasons I'm having I'm trying to articulate. I can sort of see it in my brain, because this. Oh, I'm getting shouted at. One sec. I have to pause. 1 second. Sorry, my daughter needed help with Mario on the Nintendo. Right, now, where were we? Yeah, I was trying to articulate something I think is interesting, which is that wherever a shape reaches the boundary in the middle of the grid, it doesn't have a whole load of options in terms of how it can have those boundaries. For example, this cell, it's not possible that all these 3 cells are in different regions. Now, is it possible? I'm just wondering, is it possible? You can certainly have a situation, presumably, where there's just one boundary for a cell. These 2 can just add to 7, and that's not going to be a problem. But you can't have 3 different. So where you have 2 different, where you have a cell that has 2 different boundaries, we know that those 2 boundaries can't be with the same region. But we also know, I think, because of this analysis, that it has to be a sort of crossroads. By which I mean that it's not possible. Let's say this has 2 boundaries, there and here. This square would have to be a 4th region, if you like, because if this square is either purple or green, we run into this problem. So any square in the middle of the grid that has more than one boundary must be a complete crossroads setup. Let's try and use that. It must exist like this. You could have a single boundary, like if this square and this square are in different cells, that would be fine. So how on earth can you build a grid that is anything other than rectangle? Oh, hang on, I've just realised something horrible. That's annoying. I've just had not a terminal thought, but it does occur to me that you could have, let's go back to pen drawing, you could have like that shape and fill the grid, or you could have this shape and fill the grid. And how on earth you differentiate those, I don't know. But let's just think, let's just give this a moment or two's thought. Is it possible that any other shape could exist in this puzzle? Like, could we have, I don't know, could you have something like that, where this isn't a cul-de-sac because it doesn't have a left side, in effect. Now, if this was a real situation, can that exist, is my question. This cell's fascinating, actually, more than this one, because this one has to be a crossroads, because that one definitely has a different boundary there, definitely has a different boundary here. And now this square we know can't be yellow or blue, because then we run into the problem we saw before. So that would have to be like this, and we'd have to do that shape. And now this square here, whoopsie, this square would have to be yellow because the yellow needs more shape. Now we know this can't be yellow, because if that's yellow and that's yellow, they're both connected to this digit, and these two would be a repeated digit in the yellow shape. So this must be a part of another region now. Yeah, but this is... But doesn't that mean that this, again, for the same reason that we've already talked about, this now can't be green or yellow? Because if it's green or yellow, we'll get a problem. I think we will. I'm just going to prove that to myself. I think we've already proved this. But if this is green or yellow, let's imagine it's green for a second. That's a boundary. Yeah, it doesn't work. That's a boundary here. So that must be a 4. And now that should be a boundary, and yet isn't. So that just fails again. So this has to be another. Let's go for light grey for that square. So we haven't quite. Yeah, and that breaks, because now this square here has to zoom around the bottom as green, and this grey square touches 2 green squares, which will mean that whatever's in this, well, you can see that has to be a boundary now, so that must be a 4, and that must be a 3, and there'll be a repeated 3 in green. So we're running into a massive packaging constraint here with anything other than 2x3 rectangles. I cannot see how you could possibly make a grid work that is not a 2x3 rectangle. But that said, I'm just going to delete this. That said, what we don't know is what the orientation of 2x3 rectangles is. Unless that's what the thermos are there for. Ah, right. That's right. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This is wrong. This is wrong. And it's wrong for exactly the reasons we've just been discussing, which, if we colour this square, what I argued before is that crossroads were possible, but the digits in the opposite diagonals of the crossroads were always the same digit. So look, if that's a 4, that's a 3, that's a 3, so that's a 4, because it's the 4. It's these are boundaries, so those have to be the same digit, but they're on a thermo. That says that that's impossible. So this is not correct. This is not correct. Let's restart again. So what we're actually looking for, I reckon, is like that shape. But what does that mean in terms of what do we have to do here? Do we have to fill in the thermo? Mark would be so pleased with this. I'm not doing that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's ridiculous. No, hang on a minute. Yeah, this has to add up to 7, doesn't it? So that can't be a 1, because this can't be a 6. So if that's a 2, that's a 5. So this can't be a 2, right? So this is now 3, 4, or 5. So that's now 4, 5, or 6. So that square's 1, 2, or 3. This square is 3, 5, or 2. Oh, I see. Yeah, those two are the same, aren't they? Because this is the crossroads thing. Sorry, I can't see how to. Is there any point colouring this actually? I might prefer colours to these massive load of pencil marks. I'm just going to colour these in because I know those are the same digit. I know those are the same digit. So, yeah, okay, and now I can use this crossroads, can't I? Because we know that these two digits here are definitely not red or blue. So let's go green and purple for those. So that must be purple and that must be green. Do we just complete the row then? Yellow there. Because we know that that's definitely not the same as those colours. And then when that crosses a boundary, that will have to take a different digit because it can't be any of those colours. So yellow and black are the final colours, and therefore we get black and yellow over this side. Now, this is where it's going to get very tricky though, because how do we know what colour that is? We know it's not red, and we know it's not In fact, we know it's not red because it's lower than red. It's on the thermo with red. So this square here actually is yellow. It's a wasp colour because it's not yellow or purple or blue by Sudoku, and it can't be red because of the thermo. So that's the colour of a wasp. And this is really quite interesting. It crosses a boundary here. It has this relationship when it crosses a boundary. So it crosses a boundary with another wasp, and that's a black square, so that cannot be black. So that's yellow and that's black. Oh yeah, this is gorgeous. Now red, where does red go in that box? It's got to go there. And now where does yellow go in this box? Yellow goes here, and that square must be green. Good grief. And now green, when it crosses a boundary, always meets up with purple. So what have we not put in this row now? Red, that can't be red. Right, that's red. So that's got to be blue. Now that's got to be black, and that's got to be green. This is actually getting coloured in. Blue I need over here. What else do I need? Purple. Oh, purple's here. Beautiful. Purple, blue. And I bet this thermo somehow is going to allow us to colour the grid. Can't quite see how to do this though. Oh, the yellow and the green are really close. I'm sorry if some of you can't see the difference between those. I very nearly can't. Maybe I should change green or yellow to something else. Thing is, the only colour I've really got available is orange, which is then close to red. So I think we might have to just persevere. What about this purple? And this is a purple-red domino, but I don't know the order. This is a yellow-green domino, but I don't know the order. This is a black-purple domino, and I don't know the order. So this must be a blue... what's the other missing colour? We've not put yellow into there. That's blue-yellow. That's black-red. So that must be green and blue. So how does this thermo resolve the order? Or can I do more with these numbers somehow? Yeah, I can actually. That can't be 4, can it? Because if that's 4, it crosses a boundary and hits a 3 here, which works except for the thermo. The thermo can't start 4, 3. Good lord. So that's 4. That's not 4. And that now is not 3. So 2, 3 to 4, 5. And that can't be 4 anymore. So actually, I'm getting quite restricted here on some of these cells. That's now 4 or 5. That's now 2 or 3. So I've got 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. What about that one? Yeah, right. This being 5, 6 means that's no longer 3. So yellow is just 1 or 2. So I'm wondering if this can really be yellow, because if that's yellow, that has to be a big digit. That has to be a yellow crosses to black. So if that's black and it's on the thermo, oh, that's beautiful. This is beautiful. Good grief. Yeah, right, here we go. This is yellow. That is not yellow, because if that's yellow, goes 1, 2, that's 5, 6, crossing a boundary, making these add up to 7. Now, this is on the thermo, so this has to be a 6. And because this is yellow under this hypothesis, this is blue, which is a 4 or a 5, which is not equal to 6. This does not work. This doesn't work. So this square is not yellow, and it must be green, which means that square up at the top must be yellow. Therefore, that square is blue. That square must be yellow. Now, green, when it crosses a boundary, always hits purple. Purple, therefore, can't go here. So that must be purple in the corner. Red now is determined. Yeah, it's this tiny little thermo has basically allowed us to disambiguate the grid, I think. So this is the colouring of the grid, and something will fail here. Something will fail. We don't know what purple is. Oh yeah, there you go. What's yellow? Yellow's a 1 or a 2. So there's a 1 or a 2 at the end of the thermo, so it must be a 2. So yellow is 2, which means purple is 1, which means red is 3, crosses a boundary to a 4. Okay, so now how do we do? Oh, look, and the 1 must go to a 6. I see. So black became 5, and that I think is the correct solution. Good grief! I mean, how do you have ideas like this, Mr. Fell? It's absolutely mental. It's mental. I have no idea whether people will find that interesting or not. I found it fascinating. I mean, it's crazy. And it's very difficult to... Well, is it... Sorry, I'm not being very articulate at the moment. I'm trying to think about whether or not I've missed a trick here. Now I understand the solution, or I've got the solution to the puzzle. Could I have explained that in a different way? Is there some beautiful articulation of that logic that makes it obvious everything is a rectangle? Beyond what I've done, which is basically to prove that it's impossible to have junctions that are other than crossroads. So you can either have a cell meeting a cell like this, that's fine, i.e. a cell in one region can see exactly one cell in a different region, but no more than one cell. But any position where a cell sees more than one boundary with another region, A, it can't have two boundaries with the same region. B, it can't have three boundaries with different regions. And C, and this is the clincher, where it does have two boundaries exactly, its diagonally opposite cell must be part of a fourth region. So you must, and that creates, I think, well, in my mind anyway, that sort of forces this Lego brick type arrangement and makes the puzzle what it is. And then after that, I don't think it's that difficult. You can see fairly quickly there's two orientations of the grid, and the thermo immediately breaks one with some beauty, because going diagonally across the Lego brick won't work. And then it's just a colouring exercise after that. I'm saying just. I feel like that's quite difficult. I don't know. I'm really tempted to put this on the channel, because I'd love to get an enormous response for whether I've been a bit daft, or whether actually I'd love to sort of have my faith in humanity reaffirmed. It's affirmed a lot on Cracking the Cryptic, but I like to think that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there who would genuinely be interested in this puzzle. That appeals to me. So if you have watched this video and you have enjoyed it, or even if you've been irritated by it, I'd be interested to read that as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching until the end, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.